Joined now by Kyler Staley from thehoosier.com. Hopefully a much calmer segment. Kyler, how are you, sir?
Good. Just here to bring the peace. Bring the peace.
Peace, baby. Bring the peace.
No, I want Jim fired back up. Let's go.
Don't worry.
Let's get
Don't
fired up
worry.
about the game tonight. Let's do that.
Don't worry. That's bubbling under the surface. I'm sure we'll
All right.
get back to it.
Perfect.
But tonight, Indiana travels to Iowa City in a game that is going to be a tough one to win, first of all, because it's against a decent team, but they have been struggling, and they are without one of their third leading scorer, Patrick McCaffrey. So that should definitely help Indiana out. And I think that Indiana, they've got to read. We were just talking about the Trace Jackson Davis stuff. I'm not going to relive that, but they've got to prove that kind of stuff wrong. And this is an opportunity to do that, and almost a must-win. And Iowa is also in almost a must-win situation, even though they don't have Patrick McCaffrey. They're 0-3. They lose again. Boy, they're really in trouble. But Indiana also can't really afford to lose this game, because you look over at the ledger, Wisconsin, Michigan, they're already 3-0. And so Indiana needs to stay on the winning side of things, especially games like this that are great opportunities. This is almost a must-win to me because of the situation. They don't have Patrick McCaffrey. They're 0-3. They're reeling. You got to go in there. You got to just buck up and pay the piper and win.
Yeah, and I think every game moving forward is a must-win for Indiana or any Big Ten team that's going, competing for a Big Ten championship. Both teams are pretty desperate. I think IU's got, they got a lot to prove. The non-conference, for the most part, they did okay in the non-conference, but the games you look at, the Kansas game, for example, people are questioning their toughness. This is a game for them to prove that they are tough. They can go on the road. They can beat Iowa. This game's kind of lining up for a win that Indiana can easily get. Not easily is probably not the right word, but Patrick McCaffrey's not there. Iowa's struggled a lot. They haven't looked like the Iowa of old. They changed up Indiana changed up the starting lineup. Hopefully that gives them a little bit more of a spark to start off the game for them to throw off the first punch. Indiana, this is a very winnable game. Indiana just has to realize that. They have to realize the importance of this game. They could go on the road. They can't get this win. I'm just interested to see what this Indiana team looks like with 13 days off, with all that rest. They can either come in and look really rusty, or they can come in and look really refreshed, but we won't find that out until 9 o'clock tonight.
I feel like it can be a little bit of both on that, Kyler. And what I'm really interested in is I suspect the first, 6 to 8 minutes of this game, Indiana's going to struggle to find their jump shot, just because, for no other reason other than they haven't played an opponent in 2 weeks. Like, I think that that's a very real thing. So what I'm most interested in seeing is, what are they going to do on the defensive end? And I've said this all week, so I sound like a broken record, but that's one thing that Indiana has, under Mike Woodson, tried to take pride in is they're on the defensive end. So when shots aren't falling here early on, can you defend well enough to stay in this game, not dig yourself a hole that you have to climb out of? And I think that's part of the thinking in starting Tamar Bates, getting up to a better start. But to me, I think they can look refreshed, at least on the defensive end. But then I do think it's going to take just a few minutes in this game at least to get their shots underneath of them, get their legs underneath them and start to see some shots falling.
Especially, yeah, because you don't know, especially with the health of Trace, you don't know exactly how he's going to be feeling. You're hoping within these 13 days, more than that, Trace has had off. He didn't play the last 2 games. So you're hoping he's back to 100%. Defensively, Indiana's got a lot to prove on that end. They have not looked like, even though the stats suggest otherwise, to me, they haven't looked like the defensive juggernaut that they were last year. I think they have got to have a little bit more passion on that end. That's Mike Woodson's bread and butter. He's always preaching about defense. Indiana's just got to be locked in at this point. Iowa's for the most part, is a good offensive team. They always have been. They're going to make you run up and down the floor. That's just their game. It should be a pretty fast-paced game. I think if Indiana can slow them down on offense, I think they have a really good chance to go on the road and get a win here.
Yeah, this is, Iowa's a team that likes to get up and down the floor. But again, without one of their scores, that should inhibit that somewhat. And it should give Indiana a chance to show a lot better defensive play. And that is the key to me. They have got to just get stops. They're going to have to contain Chris Murray and just not let him go wild and get beat by him, because he's going to be looking to have a big night. And it's usually one guy's not going to beat you, but if you let him get away, or if you get on a roll, that can be the case. But it's also going to be an opportunity to see how this offense is going to run with Jalen Hood-Schifino and Tamar Bates out on the floor starting in this lineup. I think that's a positive sign. I think this team with that lineup can be good. I actually like this lineup, and if they can just be efficient, they're going to win a fair share of games. They've got talent, and it's not like I don't think they can. I definitely do. I think they can go to Iowa and get this win now. And actually, I'm going to be a little surprised if they don't get this win, Kyler.
I think a lot of fans will be a little surprised if they don't win this, just because of how, the struggles that Iowa's had. Going back to the lineup, I really do. I'm starting to really like the idea of this lineup, just because, Trace Jackson Davis, Race Thompson, they're going to get double teamed, especially Trace. And you add in another more consistent shooter with Tamar Bates. Trace shot the ball pretty well, but he's still not that, that's not his first go-to move. It's more of a slasher type of role. Tamar Bates is going to be more of a spot up. I like it in that sense. Turnovers, I'm still a little worried about that. Jalen Hood-Schifino has struggled, with the turnovers ever since Xavier Johnson went down. They're going to have to limit that if they want to go on the road and beat Iowa. But yeah, the lineup situation.
Rebounding. They have got to not get out rebounded in this game. And that has been a huge killer. And I don't know if having a faster lineup might help them, because it's going to open up the spacing instead of it being so just packed in there. So hopefully Indiana can use that to their advantage too, with these quicker guys on the floor like Tamar Bates or whomever it may be. They're going to have to – they need to win the rebounding battle, especially against a team like Iowa who doesn't have a ton of size.
Yeah, and I've said this since last year. Indiana's a team that should never be out-rebounded. Never. Now that could be different when you go up against a team against like Arizona, for example, who just got monsters. But anyway, the rebounding, yes, that is crucial. And all that is, that's heart and effort. Mike Woodson said that in his radio show. That's all that is. You got to have pride on that end. You got to have pride in being like, we want to have the ball. Offensive rebounding would be great here, especially if Indiana's not hitting their shots. Defensively, they've got to win that rebound battle. They've just got to. I think Iowa might be a little bit more athletic than Indiana. I'm not for sure. I haven't watched a whole lot from them. So that's something you got to kind of watch out for. But rebounding, limit the turnovers, and, just making shots. I think Indiana can go in and get a win here.
And, what I'm really interested about too with this, Kyler, is toying with the lineup heading into this game. And I think, a lot of people on social media, and even I had talked about, I thought that it was time to start Tamar Bates just to see if he can provide you something in those first opening minutes. So you don't, sometimes they're not digging themselves a hole, but they're also not doing themselves any favors. They just don't start games very well. So I feel like it's a way to get a faster start. What I'm interested in, though, is to make that change during this period of time. I can't quite decide if it's a blessing to have 2 weeks and make that change and get him kind of accustomed into that role, or if it's bad because they didn't have that last cupcake game or, a mid-major team to kind of work out some of the kinks there in that rotation. What's your take on it? What's Mike Woodson's thinking behind making that change now?
I agree with you. It is a little weird at this point, but with Xavier Johnson going down, they were kind of forced to kind of mess around with it. Yeah. I like the idea of Tamar Bates coming off the bench just because of the scoring. He was by far Indiana's best scorer off the bench. But at the same time, I didn't like Trey Galloway starting just because he's more natural off the bench. I think in the long run, at least until Xavier Johnson comes back, I think this is going to be a good thing for Indiana. Now, as far as the bench play, guys like Trey Galloway, which he's going to bring that spark. Guys like Malik Renew, Jordan Geronimo, those guys got to step up now. They've just been so inconsistent, especially, I think, both of them. Now, you could see CJ Gunn. I could see him getting a little bit more minutes this year, or not this year, but, moving forward, just because Tamar Bates is inserted into that starting lineup, you need a little bit more scoring, and CJ Gunn is more of a natural scorer at this time. So I think it just comes down to people just got to step up. I like the lineup. I like the idea. I think it's going to provide a little bit more spark at the beginning of the game for Indiana.
And I guess to that point, one of the things that's been really interesting to me, because Don Fisher gets this stuff, obviously he's close up, he's there every week, and he said a couple of times, made the comment, he doesn't know if some of the players on the team, and he didn't point to anyone specific, he's not convinced that some of them are bought into their specific roles, or maybe they're not, okay with that specific role. I feel like this 2-week period, and we talked a lot about it, you'd like to play a game in there, but I also feel like during this 2-week period, this is a time where you're going through practice, you're learning new stuff, but this is a time for Mike Woodson to say, this is your role. This is going to be your role. And this game is so intriguing to me, maybe more than if it was just a random game in February, because I want to see what this team does, because I think, look, the Big Ten's wide open. We talked about this, but Indiana's got to make some serious improvements if they want to win the league and do what they want to do in the postseason. So I don't know. Is this a time? Is there a sense of players starting to buy into their role during this 2-week period? I mean, I don't know the atmosphere or the attitude around the team right now, but is that something that has been addressed?
You would hope so in this situation. I think it came down to at the beginning of the year, Mike Woodson talked about all the time. He was still trying to figure out his guys. He's still trying to figure out what we have. I think, honestly, you just had too much talent on this team. If you really look at it,
Sure.
You got guys like Malik Renew, who's used to being the guy. He's coming off the bench now. And now he has gotten some starts with Trace, which is great to see and everything. Jordan Geronimo kind of had to figure out his role a little bit. Is he a front court player? Is he a wing? You don't know. But I think going in with these 2 weeks, you're hoping that Indiana, the roster, their mindset's kind of, hey, this is what we got to do if we want to achieve our goals here. We got to play more like a team, which not saying they haven't played like a team, but, they just got to start meshing well together. If everyone knows their role on this Indiana team, they know what they have to accomplish. I mean, I think this team can win a Big Ten championship. No question about it. So you're hoping within these next 2 weeks, everybody's minds are refreshed. They have a game plan on how to attack the rest of the season, and we'll just see what happens if Indiana will be a contender or not.